guys, and I came to Japan in 2020 with absolutely zero knowledge of Japanese language, and I have recently passed JLPT N2 level in 2.5 years. JLPT is a short form for Japanese Language Proficiency Test, and it has 5 levels starting from N5 to N1. I came to Japan as a student on Max Scholarship, and my graduate course was also quite demanding, so language learning wasn't my major activity. Rather, I was learning as a second activity after my studies. So basically, I had limited time for the language like most of you, so I tried a lot of different ways and resources, and I stick to the ones which help me the most. So in this video, first I will talk about the resources I have used to learn Japanese language, and then at the end I will share general tips from my experience which you can apply to learn any other language. Some of you who are watching this video may already know basic Japanese language, but I will briefly explain how to start from zero, and based upon your level, you can pick resources that match your Japanese language proficiency. So first of all, let's talk about the starting point. To be honest, Japanese is not one of the easiest languages to learn, but if you act smart and choose good resources, you can save a lot of time and learn very fast. So if you have no prior knowledge about Japanese language, you need to have understanding about the basic grammar to get to know the structure of the language. So there are 3 options to start. First is the conventional way, and that is to take a Japanese language basic grammar course at a language school or at your university. I personally started through this option, but I must mention that I was very involved in and active in the classes, but I didn't have enough time to read books after the classes or do my homework properly. Second option is to buy a book and study by yourself. I recommend a book called KANJI, which is very easy to understand for beginners, and you can study it by yourself. Third option is the most recommended, especially for those who cannot go to a language school or attend a language class, and that is to take online courses. One free online resource is Minato e-learning by Japanese Foundation. I will mention all the links in the video description so you can have a look later. Another option for the starting point of online learning is to use YouTube channels. So one YouTube channel is called Japanese Pod101, which has many videos about basic to advanced Japanese language. So this first stage can take from 3 to 4 months given that you study on a regular basis by giving 1 to 2 hours every day. Okay, so next stage is to get ready for real life Japanese. So at this point, you will have a good base for absorbing most forms of learning materials. Personally, at this time, I was having a feeling that although I got knowledge about basic language, but my ability was still very far from the real life Japanese language which people use in their daily life. So I started exploring different resources. My all-time favorite resource is Learn Japanese Pod. It is basically a podcast where a guy named Alex, who came to Japan a long time ago, talks to a Japanese person. First, they play a very short conversation in a specific scenario, and then they dissect the conversation to explain each part of it. The best part is that they use language which is actually used in daily life in Japan. And while explaining that, they discuss a lot of things about Japanese culture, which is very fun to listen to. I absolutely loved it. They have a YouTube channel and also a mobile application where they have uploaded more than 40 podcasts, and I have listened to all of them. In one of the podcasts with Alex, he introduced a Japanese person, Miku, who has her own channel on YouTube. I started watching it and it was super useful. Miku sensei explains basic to intermediate grammar by making some skits about real life scenarios, and she also makes podcasts in easy to understand Japanese language, and those were super fun to listen and became a good source of learning. During this year, I was not taking any Japanese language classes, and I was just focusing to build vocabulary and grammar through these podcasts. The next stage is to further strengthen listening and speaking ability. At this point, it was my second year in Japan, and personally, I was focused more on listening and speaking rather than reading. So I was constantly exploring resources to further improve my listening and speaking ability. I came across a video from Miku sensei who introduced a Japanese person who has his own channel named as Yuyu Nihongo. This man puts a lot of effort in making his videos to make them a perfect resource for listening, reading, and speaking. He talks about a certain topic in relatively easy to understand Japanese. I used to listen to this podcast while walking or cooking, and whenever I didn't understand any word, I used to pause and look for the meaning of the word. This is one of my favorite resources and I highly recommend it. Okay, whenever I feel ultra motivated to learn something advanced and need a high dose of Japanese language, I listen to this guy named Dogen on YouTube. He makes quality content about Japanese language in a humorous and fun way. So do check it out if you want to challenge listening to advanced level Japanese. Okay, as you know, one of the major components of Japanese language is kanji. So next I'm going to talk about how you can develop reading ability for kanji. In my first 6 months, I didn't focus on kanji because, to be honest, it looked very difficult and it was a bit overwhelming experience. I started learning kanji in a class and from a vocabulary list, but this method didn't work for me. Then I came across this app called Wani Kani. They teach kanji from a very basic level through a system called space repetition system. They make stories about the kanji characters, which helps to remember it for a very long time. I learned almost 600 kanjis from this app, and then I joined intermediate kanji class at my university. But if you cannot attend such a class, I think continuing with Wani Kani is equally effective. It is also important to practice kanji in actual scenarios. So the second resource which helped me to practice kanji is Todai Easy News. Actually, they make an easy version of current news and put it in their app, where you can practice reading Japanese while getting to know about the current issues. I think this is a very effective way of learning. They have some amazing functions to learn about the meaning of new words and also mention reading for each kanji, which you can turn on and off. This app is free, but if you want to avoid ads, you can get a paid version, and I think it's totally worth it. Let's talk about the final rundown, which is JLPT test. So after 2 years of learning Japanese, at this point I knew conversation level Japanese and knew almost 800 kanjis. So I registered for the JLPT N2 exam around August 2022, and I started preparing for the actual test after the registration. By the way, this was my first ever language test, but I was very excited to accept this challenge. I was confident in my listening ability, but kanji and grammar parts were still lacking, so I focused on learning N2 grammar directly from some YouTube channels. So the first YouTube channel is Nihongo class, and the sensei, who by the way doesn't mention her name, has made amazing videos about explaining each type of grammar which is in the N2 exam, and made a lot of practice questions, and I think that was super useful for me. I watched all N2 videos on this channel, and this channel has saved me a lot of time in the preparation. So in addition to these YouTube channels, I solved practice test on Todai Easy app, the same app which makes easy version of the news. So they have practice test for each Japanese JLPT level on their website. So I myself solved almost 7 tests, as I failed in the first one, but then I started to understand the test structure. In my opinion, learning how to attempt the test is very important, because there will always be some words which you don't understand in the test, but practice helps in identifying the actual things being asked, and you can still identify the correct answers even if you don't understand everything. So that is the summary of all the resources which proved useful for me for my preparation of Japanese language. So at the end, I would like to share some tips from my personal experience. So I think you can use these tips in learning any kind of other language or some other skill which requires a lot of time. The first and most important tip is that learning a language is a marathon. Never expect quick results and just believe in the process, and somewhere in the process you will start feeling confident. I used to get frustrated when I didn't seem to improve after attending a lot of classes, but slowly I started to enjoy the process. Second tip is also very important, and that is to choose the resources which you enjoy, which make you feel good after spending time on learning and don't make you feel tired. I personally felt that learning through books is a bit boring, so I tried other ways which worked very well for me. Last but not the least takeaway is that learning language becomes fun by getting interested in the culture. I personally felt more motivated to learn when I used online resources which were not just teaching the language but also many things about the culture. At the end, I would like to say, Yaruki ga areba nandemo dekiru.